So John back at it again this time. This time I've got a nice project here. The project this time is to take apart and put back together again with no pieces left over a Sears Craftsman snowblower. The season is past now, so we're ready to just take it apart, fix it all up again, and get it ready for next winter. This was quite a little project because, as you know, these little snow blowers with these little Tecumseh engines are prone to some difficulties, but they are reliable. This is an old Tecumseh in a Sears snowblower, an old green machine, as they say. And this has been reliable. We haven't used it too much, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. The wife likes this one because it's nice and light. It's a one-stage snowblower, and it's a 2-stroke engine. I didn't know anything about 2-stroke engines, and that's what I'm trying to do here, is learn more about them. And also, since this thing was pretty well crumpled up anyway, and the wife was saying, you know, she likes it because it's light. She's actually able to use it. She wanted to, like, keep it, but it was having some difficulties. As you can see, there were parts here that were screwed up, especially these handles and other parts in here. There's a lot of rust. But anyway, thought we'd try to resurrect this too, but there wasn't really anything terribly wrong with it. This is a Sears Craftsman. It was a 143025071, and in cross-referencing this with the parts and checking with some detective work, I found that that's the same thing as the Tecumseh HSK 845225D, because the parts here, as you can see, the ring set in the crankshaft for this HSK 845 were also the same as the Craftsman parts. So it's just the Craftsman relabeled it to their own numbers. But anyway, that's what it is. So anyway, here is the inside of this 2-stroke engine, which I thought was very, very interesting, because the 2-stroke engine doesn't even have any valves. It's very lightweight, very simple machine. Down at the end there, you can see where the spark plug would be. Here's the old piston, scored up a little bit. Right there, you can see some scars. Now, maybe you can see it now. Scars. But the cylinder bore itself was pretty good. Maybe a little bit of scarring, but very simple. Nice smooth bore. Down at the end is the spark plug. And now if you look down here, you can see several things. First, here is where the exhaust comes out. Right there. Right there. That's where the exhaust comes out. That's the first exit port in this cylinder. So what happens was the cylinder goes up to the top here, the spark plug ignites it, the cylinder is pushed down really quickly, and the first exit port here is the exhaust. So the exhaust is just pushed right out with the downward stroke of the 2-cycle, because this is a 2-cycle engine, by the way. And the very next thing that happens is you have these two transfer ports, and they are attached to this right here, which is this fishbowl situation. And this fishbowl situation collects a lot of the air and gas mixture on the downward stroke, and what it does is it collects it for the next intake stroke. So the gas itself comes in here. This is the carburetor intake. So here, carburetor, got it? This is where the carburetor will come in. But the carburetor does not let the gas and air mixture into the cylinder head. It lets it into the crankcase. That's, to me, is very amazing that you let the air and gas mixture into the crankcase instead of into the cylinder top. But what happens then is when you let the air gas mixture into the cylinder, into the crankcase, it goes into that right there, which is one end of the transfer case. The other end of the transfer case is up here, and where that goes is on the next intake. When the intake goes up, it will also collect this gas-air mixture into the cylinder head. So when the cylinder is when the piston's going up, it will collect this gas-air mixture up to the top, where it will then ignite, and then again the cylinder or the piston will come down. The very first stop, of course, is in the exhaust port, and then it will collect on the downward stroke. It will collect some more air gas mixture as it pushes into the crankcase. And of course, again, this cycle will repeat itself because it's only 2 strokes. This again will be where the gas air mixture comes into the crankcase, then we'll go into the transfer port again, and then the transfer port will collect in the fishbowl, if you will, and then get back up to the other end of the fishbowl, which is this one here, which is these 3 ports up here at the top, which again will let the air gas mixture into the cylinder head. Now you can see here that there is no way, there is no cylinder heads here that disconnect, so there's no head gaskets. This is all one piece, so it's an economy of parts. And again, there are no valves, and there are no lifters, none of that kind of stuff. So this is a very simple setup. This has been a reliable engine too, so we've been pleased with it. But again, in my desire to try and figure out how things work, that's why I took this apart. And also, since it's old, we're able to find parts for this. Again, this is a Tecumseh. Tecumseh went out of business in 2007, 2008, but there still is Tecumseh parts out there because Tecumseh Power is still in business. They have some sort of relationship with liquid combustion technology to make some engines for the snow blowers now in China, but they're still making parts for this Tecumseh engine. So there's parts here made in the US, if you will, and there are still parts here that I'm able to get. So we're able to start rebuilding this. I just wanted to give you some background on you know, what I'm trying to do, which is figure out how things work. This has been quite a journey, is all I'm going to say, because, you know, if you don't see these things, they don't really compute too well on how different this kind of engine is than most engines. Okay, that's the first part. Bye. So the next thing you do is you take the crank shaft, which has a lot of parts on it, but anyway, the crankshaft here, you put this roll of needle bearings on it. The roll of needle bearings looks like this, just like that. And so what you do is you count them up. There should be 31, and then you slide them around the area where the connecting rod is going to fit. This is just, that's how they do it in Tecumseh. So there's some already on here, and the rest of them are connected by beeswax or something. Okay, so they're kind of connected to each other, and what you do is you just slide them right on there like that, and now you got them all the way around the crankshaft. Okay. Right. Now the next thing is you take your brand new piston. Alright, here's your old one. It's a little scarred up. And kind of hone this out a little bit. The inside of our cylinder. Now, there's some of that. Now here's the new piston. Okay, very nice. Nice piston. And so what we're going to do, what you have to do first, is you had to put this sleeve in the middle there. And that's real simple to do. All you do is just take it over the vise, and with some oil you put the sleeve into the connecting rod hole and just push it in with a vise. You can see that there's no rod, bolts, or anything else here. This is all one piece. So what you do with it now is go back over here and put your piston with the connecting rod all in one piece onto the crankshaft. Okay, and then you just make sure that these needle bearings are where they ought to be. And then you put the crankshaft inside of the piston. So we'll just do that right now. Okay, so it's done. Alright. Now, say this doesn't look like anything that you'd normally do with a 4-stroke. That's how they do it. You can see that what we're going to do now is take this piston and put it into this cylinder, and there is no need to use anything to compress the rings, because the cylinder wall is tapered, so they'll slide in just like that. So we'll get back to that in a minute. Okay, I just want to let you know where we're at. So it's real simple to just get that in there, you know. Just fit right in, and you just give it a little nudge on the sides there, and your piston's in the cylinder. Now attach the crank again, because I had to take the crank off to get the little C-clips in, but I got the C-clips in, and then the piston just slid right in. Now I'm ready to put the crankshaft back on, get this thing sealed up. Thanks. But don't forget these 3 little balls here. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and they go on the inside of a washer, a big washer that connects to the governor. So you got to get that on there too, so that will decrease the friction on the governor shaft. Thanks. So now I have the piston in there, and you can see, nice. I put some oil in there too, just to make it less frictionated. Here's one bearing over here. Here's the other bearing over here. There's the here's the washer, if you will, that keeps the governor from touching the crank shaft. And on the other side of it is, of course, those ball bearings. But at any rate, it moves around real nice now, so all good. And underneath here, you can see, are those needle bearings inside that one piece piston arm or piston rod. So it's working pretty good here. And again, now we're ready to reassemble the sump, if you will, and then after that we'll put in the seals. Okay, good. So now I got these sump bolts in, all four of them, the shorter ones, the longer ones, and you can see I got this, it looks like cranberry sauce type of gasket maker. They don't have gaskets for this model, so Tecumseh recommends this stuff, 515, whatever it is, but it's that color, and it's a nice green, reddish color. And you put the head bolts in, not the head bolts, but the sump bolts in, the four of them, torque them down. This thing still turns, kind of. So we're ready to get going here with putting this back in. Okay? So now the flywheel is on, and we'll tighten it up a little bit later, because I want the gasket down here, this current jelly stuff, to harden up a little bit, because there is some oil inside there that I put to lubricate up the pistons, and so I want this gasket maker stuff to harden up first, and then we'll put the rest of the stuff on, tighten up the flywheel bolt, put the rest of the stuff on, and then reassemble the whole thing and see if this thing's gonna start up, this Tecumseh. Yeah. So everything's back in now. We've got the engine, we got it mounted back in this snowblower. We got all the mounting bolts in, there are four of them. One of them down there is a little bit longer, that has this guide here that it attaches to. Well, a bit of a setback here. I had it all ready to go. Actually, I started this thing up. I was doing good for the first 25 seconds thereabouts, and then it stopped. And when it stopped, it had all sorts of noises, and I said, oh, a rod must have broken or something else happened. But actual fact was that this is what happened. This here is what you call a sheared off flywheel key. Sheared it off, and it sounded like this in there when I was playing around, because this came off the bell for the pull cord like that. I couldn't get any engine action, and I said, oh, something catastrophic happened. Well, the fact was the flywheel key broke off, and so I had to take it back out, take it apart, take off the this thing. I suspect that what happened was I just didn't torque it enough, like 55 pounds of foot-pounds, so it just sheared off because it was loose. got some flywheel keys on order, and we'll see what happens when they get here. Okay? Sorry. Bye. Well, there was one last problem. The thing wouldn't start after I had it all connected and all together, and you know, I got it going with starter fluid, but it looked like it wasn't getting any gas, so I took it apart, the fuel line, and it turned out that this thing here, oriented this way towards the carburetor, was not letting any gas past it. So I took it out, got a new fuel line, put the fuel line in without this filter in it, and then I was able to start the thing up. So here it is. Let's see what we can do. Let's get it on the choke, and then let's get it started up. Ready? I'm sure you are. I finally got the thing up. It was quite a journey. Thank you very much. I'm glad you watched this long presentation on how to fix up our Tecumseh